Hey guys, welcome back from spring break. In case you didn't get the memo, all the weeks after spring break, going to the end of the school year till your last day on May 15th, we are going to be teaching new standards. Miss Julie and I are going to be introducing you to some topics that we didn't get to cover before we left the school building. So we want to give you a head start going into 5th grade to know everything that you need to know. So if you're taking the opportunity to do this and you're bringing your full brain power and your full focus to these activities, then you are going to have a head start going into 5th grade. So these are 4th grade standards, but we didn't have time to teach them while we were all coming to the school building. So here's your opportunity to learn. Today we're going to be learning about citing explicit and implicit information from the text in informational texts. So what I mean by that is citing, we know that citing is giving evidence from the text. So you're giving an answer to a question, but you're also backing it up with cited text evidence. Okay, so we're citing explicit information from the text. So we're saying the text said this word for word. And we're going to cite some information, some implicit information from the text. So the text said this, but the information that I gathered from it was this. This is the inferential meaning that I got. So when we are being asked questions about texts, which is all you're ever asked questions about in reading, you're always going to be asked questions about a text that the people ask you to read. Your teachers, standardized tests, they're going to ask you to read this text and answer these questions. So they're never asking you, we are never asking you to come up with an answer out of your head, out of your memories, out of your background knowledge, out of your self-selected text. No, we're asking you to come up with an answer from the actual text that we've given you to read. So when you answer those questions, it is expected that you use information that you gathered from the text. Okay? And the information that you gather may be things that you've read word for word, or it may be things that you inferred from what the text said. Okay? So let's take a look at explicit and implicit information. Okay, so explicit information, as you can see right here. Explicit information, you can put an X on the information in the text. I know this about the text because the text said this word for word. Word for word. You can put an X on it. It's right there. Okay? Implicit information is the information you read is implying something else. So it is saying this, but you're kind of understanding it to mean this other information. This is going to be your inferential information, okay? So we've got explicit information, and then we've got things that we infer given the details. Okay, the text does not say it word for word, but you infer that information, okay? Now, here's a kicker, and this is going to be one of those connections that questions will ask you to make a lot. And it's asking you to identify the information that both texts, so it'll give you two texts, and both of the texts say the same thing, but one text may say it explicitly and the other text may say it implicitly. Even though a text might not use the same words, the two texts can still say the same things, okay? So let's say we're reading a story and the author says, one author says, she was bald. The character was bald. Miss Hannah was bald. And then there's another text that talks about my life where I became bald. And it says, she cut off all her hair. So while one text said that I was bald, another text said that I cut off all my hair, and you can infer that I was bald. Okay? So there's explicit information and there's implicit information. Let's keep going. Now, information that is stated explicitly in one text might be stated implicitly in another. And now the reason why I'm doing those motions, if you look at this slide right here, explicit information, you can put an X on it. It's right there. Implicit information, you have to infer. You have to think, okay? You have to kind of connect it to some background knowledge or visualize it in your head to get that inferential meaning. Sorry about those notifications. Maybe they'll go away if I quit that app. Okay, So let's apply this to a text. Now, if you have done your assignments, all of them, specifically the one that talked about Andrew Carnegie, you will have already read this text. I'm not sure why it has to reload. It was already loaded. Let's see. Okay. In case you're wondering where I get these questions from, I don't make them up. I actually go to a database where all of the questions from previous milestones are housed, and I choose milestones questions for the standards that I'm trying to teach you because I want to know exactly what you need to know, and I want to teach you the way that you need to be tested, okay? The way that you're going to be tested. All right, so we have unexpected help, and we have the text Andrew Carnegie, Rags to Riches. So we're going to read both of these texts, and I'm going to ask one of those questions that kind of pertains to this standard. I'm so sorry about those notifications, guys. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question that pertains to this standard, and it's going to apply to these two texts. Now, you're not going to work with these two texts. You're going to work with Atlanta's Olympic Journey and Going for the Gold. Those are going to be the two texts you are asked about, but I'm going to start off with modeling using these different texts, okay? So, our first text is unexpected help. And I've read this to you before. If you don't want me to read to you, you can pause the video right here and you can read it for yourself. Or you can just keep on listening and read along with me while I read out loud. Now, if the text is too small for me, you can take 2 fingers, not on this video, but on your quiz, you can take 2 fingers and spread them apart. And that is how you zoom in. I'll show you. Boom. So big. I can read that perfectly now. Okay. Unexpected help. The library in our county was so new that it practically crinkled like a freshly starched shirt. Ma and Pa didn't really see the need for it. The fact that Mayor Wilson donated a part of his own land as the building site to one of those Carnegie libraries left them speechless. But then, as horse ranchers, maybe they saw the land differently from someone who owned the largest store in town. I never thought I'd have a use for the library myself. I read at school, but I figured I would always be too busy helping out Ma and Pa at our ranch to spend much time on reading books. We couldn't spare an extra horse for me to ride to school on either, so even the time spent walking to and from school meant time away from the ranch. I was the youngest in our family, but I still had plenty of chores to do at home. Today, when I got home, I ran through my regular chores faster than usual. I found a baby rabbit without a mama and had been taking care of it on my own. Mandy was the tiniest little thing, a soft little gray fur ball. Her ears were as delicate and as down feathers. That's a beautiful simile there. As delicate as down feathers. So delicate. I've been feeding her drops of cow's milk off a spoon. Ma and Pa had no time to help me, and neither did my sisters. So far, Mandy had been doing pretty well, but today when I got to her little cozy barn corner, she was curled up and panting. Clearly, something wasn't right. Ma, Pa, I cried, racing to the field to find my parents. They'd know what to do, but to my shock, when I explained the problem, they shook their heads. We don't know anything about rabbits, son, Ma said. What about Dr. Harris? I asked, referring to the town animal doctor. He worked on the horses, cows, chickens, and near everything else. Sometimes he even worked on people. Ma put her hand against my cheek. I could feel the palm of her rough skin against my skin, but her touch was gentle. I know you want to save your pet, but we don't have the money to pay for a trip to Dr. Harris on account of a rabbit, you see? And I did. Getting Dr. Harris for even a foaling mare cost a lot and was a serious investment. A foaling mare, that's something that I don't have any background knowledge on. I could look that up, but I don't think it's going to be too important to understanding the text, so I'm going to keep going. If it becomes important, I'll look it up. I slept in the barn with Mandy that night, keeping her company as a thunderstorm crashed around us. When the thunder rumbled, she jumped, and I was glad, because it meant she was still alive. The next morning was a school morning. Ma, my rabbit needs me, I protested, but she insisted I go to school with my sisters. My eggs sat in my stomach like a lump of hot coal all the way into town. Another simile. Um, my eggs sat in my stomach like a lump of hot coal all the way to town. So, like a lump of hot coal, almost like his stomach is heavy. Like, have you ever felt when your stomach drops when you get nervous? I feel like maybe he's trying to tell us that he's nervous. All I could think of was how to help Mandy. We passed the library on the way, and suddenly the idea hit me like a mule's kick to the gut. Another good simile. The library would have information on rabbits. I always wondered what the likes of me would do in such a clean, quiet place as the library, but today it turned out I had a need for information, and maybe the library could help. I decided that I'd visit the library after school. That afternoon, I slipped inside the library doors like a mouse moving between sleeping barn cats. Another good simile. Wow. This author used a lot of similes. We know it's simile because it uses like, and there was one that used as. Let's see. Looking. You may see it, but I'm not seeing it. Okay, sorry. That was just a side note anyways. Whew. The wooden floor was polished to a gleam, and rows of books lined the one-room building and filled the middle. My eyes widened in surprise. I didn't know I could actually choose the books myself. How would I ever find anything? A woman stepped up beside me, and I recognized her from town. "Can I help you?" she asked. With relief, I said, "I'm looking for help for my rabbit." With the librarian's help, I was able to find 3 books, one of which was from a fancy college back east where they studied how to care for baby animals. She checked them out for me for free, and I took off home. As soon as I got home, I poured through the books. Some of the words were longer than I was tall, but I figured them out anyway. And then I used every method the books suggested, and before too long, my little rabbit started to improve. Ma and Pa were proud of me, and I thought that perhaps I could grow up to treat animals one day to earn a living. But I sort of have a secret wish. I want to work in a library so I can help others when they need information. For me, that Carnegie Library was the best thing to ever happen to this town. Mandy the rabbit sure thought so too. Okay, our next one is called Andrew Carnegie, Rags to Riches. Now, this kind of relates to this text. The texts are related because we know we read Carnegie in this text as well. See, Carnegie Libraries. So I know that this is not Andrew Carnegie's perspective because how would there already be Carnegie Libraries if Andrew Carnegie is still a child? But let's just see. Seems like the person that this text is going to tell us about is the person who the libraries are named after in the first text. But let's just see. Andrew Carnegie, Rags to Riches. Although Andrew Carnegie became a millionaire, he did not start life as one. He was born in 1835 into a working-class family in Dunfermline, Scotland. In 1848, his family immigrated to the United States and settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Carnegie at work. This is a heading. We know that it's a heading because it is in bold print and it's right before a new section of the text. And headings are a what do you call that? Oh, a text feature. It's a feature in informational texts. Okay, so that's our heading. Carnegie was 13 years old when he first got his job in textile mill, earning $1.20 a week. Due to his quickness and hard work, he soon worked his way upwards through a succession of jobs, each earning more money than the last. In addition to working in the mill, Carnegie worked in a factory, tended a steam engine, and became a telegraph operator, someone who sends messages using telegraph machine. In 1853, he went to work for the Pennsylvania Railroad for $35 per month as an assistant to Thomas Scott, a superintendent. Working under Scott, Carnegie learned all about the railroad industry and later became a superintendent himself. Scott also taught Carnegie about investing in the stock market. Scott explained to Carnegie that when a company performed well, it paid dividends out of its profits to people who owned stock. When Carnegie received his first dividend check, he shouted, "Here's the goose that laid the golden eggs." Sorry about that. This money was the first he'd ever received without having worked for it himself. Carnegie had Carnegie had learned to let his money work for him. The next heading says, Carnegie makes his fortune. Working in American industry and making smart investments, Carnegie had already made a fortune before the age of 30. In the 1870s, he saw the potential of the steel industry and founded his own steel mill. The company boomed. Soon, Carnegie became a powerful businessman and a leading force in the American steel industry. In 1901, Carnegie sold the company for $250 million. It was time for Carnegie to retire. Carnegie gives away his fortune. So we've gone through his work history, Carnegie at work. We've gone through how he made money. And now we're going to read about how he gave it away. Can you imagine becoming one of the richest people in the world and then giving your money away? That's exactly what Andrew Carnegie did. When he retired, Carnegie wanted to become a philanthropist, a person who gives money to good causes. He believed in the gospel of wealth. This meant that wealthy people should give their money back to others in society. Carnegie had made some charitable donations before 1901, but once he retired, giving his money away became his new occupation. Besides founding the Carnegie Institution to fund scientific research, he established a pension fund for teachers with a $10 million donation. He also gave $125 million to a foundation called the Carnegie Corporation to aid colleges and other schools. Over the years, he funded many educational groups, museums, universities, and even a Center for World Peace. Wow, sounds like an awesome philanthropist. A philanthropist, as I've gathered from this passage, is someone who gives their money away. Carnegie Libraries. Carnegie is perhaps best known for funding libraries. Throughout his life, Andrew Carnegie loved to read, so it made sense that he wanted to give money to support education and reading. As a young man, Carnegie lived near Colonel James Anderson, a rich man who allowed any working boy to use his personal library for free. In those days, America did not have a system of public libraries, free public libraries. Carnegie never forgot Colonel Anderson's generosity. As a result, Carnegie gave money to towns and cities to build more than 2,000 public libraries. He believed that free libraries were the best way for people to improve themselves. He even funded libraries in other countries, including one in his hometown in Scotland. By 1911, Carnegie had given away a huge amount of money, over $350 million, nearly 90% of his fortune. The man who had gone from rags to riches found that by the end of his life, libraries, education, and peace meant more to him than money. Many across the world have benefited from Andrew Carnegie, the man who gave most of his fortune away. Those are some really interesting passages. Now, in the past, I've suggested that you read the question first and kind of read through the passage for the answer to the question. But recently, I've decided that I think it's important to read through the passages with an open mind and then go back and do that second read after you read the question. That way you get a more in-depth understanding of the text and you're not tempted so much to just skim. I don't want to skim. I want to get everything I can out of every text I'm exposed to. So, let's read our question. How are Carnegie's actions as a boy in Andrew Carnegie Rags to Riches similar to the actions of the boy in Unexpected Help? See, let's zoom out. So we're looking for how Andrew Carnegie's actions as a boy in Andrew Carnegie Rags to Riches similar to the actions of the boy in Unexpected Help. So, we're looking for his experience as a young boy in this text, and we're going to see how it's similar to the boy's experience in Unexpected Help. So I remember Unexpected Help is the story of a boy who was growing up on a farm, and he didn't have any use for a library until he finally found a reason to need information. He was taking care of that little bunny. So at first he didn't have a reason for that library, and then he did, and he was really glad that he had the library. So I'm going to reread the first part here and see if I can find any similarities. It says, although Andrew Carnegie became a millionaire, he did not start life as one. He was born in 1835 into a working-class family in Dunfermline, Scotland. In 1848, his family immigrated to the United States and settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, I can see a similarity, which similarities are things that are the same already. I already noticed that Andrew Carnegie, as a young boy, was living in a working class family. Working class means that you're not like sitting in an office, or maybe your parents do sit in an office, but it's very like you are more living paycheck to paycheck than just stacking money in the bank and just doing whatever you want. He couldn't just do whatever he wanted. He was in a working class family, which meant his parents worked for what they had, and that's a lot like what this narrator here, the young boy in Unexpected Help, his parents worked on the farm. So that's one similarity. Now, we know he moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let's see. Did it say that they lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? I don't think so. It doesn't say. It just says that the library in our county was so new that it practically crinkled freshly starched shirt. Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm thinking that they're similar. The two boys are similar because they both grew up in working class families. Now, there's a way to see if I'm right. This link right here is the exemplar file. Okay, so exemplar means perfectly, exactly correct. And I can see what other students have submitted on Milestones, and I can see what the Milestones creators were thinking when they were making the question. So let's just look over here. I have them saved over here. So, both use a library to search for information. It looks like I was incorrect. So the similarities between the boys in each text were that they both use a library to search for information. And here's the rationale. Here's why they say this is right. In both pieces, the authors talk about each boy consulting a library to gain knowledge and information. The article states that Andrew Carnegie loved to read, and that he used the library of Colonel Anderson, who allowed any working boy to use his personal library for free. The boy in the story also went to a library to gain the information to solve his problem. He concludes, for me, that Carnegie Library was the best thing to ever happen to this town. Now, this student said because they got information that they needed from the library. And they got it right. They got 1. It's either a 0 or a 1 on this type of question. And this one says they're similar because the boy in Unexpected Help wanted to find out about rabbits, and Andrew Carnegie wanted to find out about rags and riches. I probably would have counted that incorrect, but this person actually said the response provides an acceptable explanation of how Carnegie's actions as a boy are similar to the actions of the boy in Unexpected Help. The boy went to the library to find information about helping his rabbit. Carnegie went to the library because he loved to read and learn. Both characters sought to gain information and knowledge. They both live in a rich neighborhood? Nope. Both of them are boys? Irrelevant. And this one, notice these are getting 0s. They're similar because they both did something to help someone or something. And then they said it's too vague to determine what they mean, so they got a 0. Okay, so when you're answering these questions, you want to be very specific. For the questions that you're going to answer on your quiz, which is right here, for these questions, I do have an exemplar file as well, and that's what I used to mark the correct answers, and it's also what I used is what I'm going to use to grade your short answer questions. And I'm going to give you some good feedback on these, so I want you to do your very best to show me really what you know, because this is how you're going to get that step ahead. Just completing it isn't going to get you a step ahead. Coming back to look at your feedback and hear what I have to say about it and to show you what the correct answers were, that's what's going to get you that step ahead. Okay, guys? I can't wait to see what you have. I can't wait to give you feedback and make this a really meaningful experience for you. I hope you have an awesome week. Do your best.